All right, this morning we are lighting our candle on the last Sunday of our harvest theme. We light the candle for release. And we have been talking all month about the harvest, which is ending this time of year. If we weren't city folk, we'd be making sure those last crops were stored correctly and the vegetables were down in the root cellar and the jams and jellies were all done. The canning was complete. And we'd be getting ready for winter. Winter here is a relative term. However, the season still applies. Because we do go through the same seasons within ourselves that nature goes through on the outside. What we see here, even in sunny Southern California, is that the leaves fall. And when you think about it, winter often looks like everything has died. You know, if you live in snow country, there's a few evergreen trees, pine needles here and there, but most of the other trees are sticks covered in snow. There's no flowers, there's no grass. Anything that was on the ground is now covered. And it's very easy to think that nothing is living out there. But it's not true. You know, dormancy is not death. It is a pause for renewal, just like our own sleep cycle is. Every day, well, hopefully every day, when evening comes, you start to wind down and then you go to sleep and you are refreshed and renewed physically for the new day the next morning. You know yourself that if your sleep cycle is interrupted, you are not much good to anyone, are you? You're cranky, you're irritable, you're sloppy, whatever other word you can think of for yourself when you're not your best. Because sleep refreshes, sleep renews. You know, we need that deep sleep cycle, that REM cycle, because that is when the growth hormones that we still have are released in order to repair the tissues of our body. And nature's cycles are no different. The earth also sleeps so that everything might be rejuvenated and repaired and made ready for spring. So when the tree drops its leaves, it's not that the tree is dying, but that the leaves have already moved through the cycle of their own existence, their individual existence. So they start out green, they do all their magic with cleansing the air and producing chlorophyll, and they do what they do. And then when the fall comes, there's a last burst of color before they turn brown and they leave the tree, they fall. Now, what we know about nature is nothing's ever wasted, all right? Energy doesn't go anywhere. It is transformed into something else. So those leaves, especially if they're crumbled up into small pieces, land on the soil and become part of the nutrients that are created, the chemical reaction that allows those leaves to decompose and become fodder for new growth. All right? So we too have an opportunity to look at what we're ready to let go of and see how it might, in fact, or has already nourished our own growth. The period of evening, which is what fall relates to, is ideally that time of day where we quiet down, right? You all know that you're not supposed to be on your phones right up until the moment of sleep, right? Some of you are, I'm the only one that okay. The idea is to let your mind slow down a bit, to get quiet, to welcome sleep. And one of the ways that we get quiet is by releasing or letting go of whatever we've been holding on to or fighting with or struggling with or thinking about or making happen all day long. Now, you know that if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're in one of those little thought spirals, it's usually about something that didn't get done, right? So thinking about things to do is not quieting. It's sort of the opposite of a quiet mind. So what we're going to do seasonally in our sleep or seasonally in the world is to allow everything to quiet so that we might be refreshed. Good night's sleep is the best medicine, right? Pat and I spent yesterday, she spent it racing. I spent it waiting for her. Outside in the wind and the dust in Lebec, which is up by Lake Castaic. Beautiful day, gorgeous day, except for the dust everywhere. Now, I love being outside, and I've got great pictures of oak trees in front of the Golden Hills, and she did a fabulous job out there on the race course, and we had a great lunch afterwards and had a lovely drive home. But I was exhausted. You know, all that sunshine wears a girl out, right? So I found myself last night at about 20 after 9, done. I mean, done. I mean, fell asleep, maybe with my phone in my hand, but still fell asleep and slept 8 hours. I don't normally sleep 8 hours. Obviously, I needed it. That 8 hours sleep makes everything today brand new, makes the energy brand new. Not to say I won't take a nap this afternoon, but right now I'm feeling really good. So we need this cycle. That's my point. Nature has a cycle for a reason, and what we see outside, we mirror inside. And autumn is this time of reflection. You know, spring is all about the birth and the growth, and summer is all about the doing and the harvesting, and fall is all about pausing and reflecting and storing and preparing for the sleep of winter. And winter is our opportunity to do the inner work, to do the work within, to reflect on our lives, to let ourselves grow from the inside out, rather than all of those fun activities we've been doing up until now. Now, it's not always easy to let go of what it's time to let go of, right? So that friendship that sort of faded away for lack of time and attention, or maybe distance was a problem. It's kind of like those pale yellow leaves on the trees, just sort of going from green to yellow to gone. And then there are those things that happen that create a reaction in us. You know, maybe it's the job that we didn't think we were ready to let go of, but they let us go anyway. That's sort of like that orange leaf. It's like, that creates feelings and opinions and emotions and a response in us that flares up and that it's hard to let go of. You know, anything with an emotional hook can be hard to let go of when it's over. And then there's deep trauma. There's the loss of a loved one, or there's a tragedy in your neighborhood, or there's something that just breaks your heart. And that's like those deep red leaves, that fire, that sort of blasting away of something that meant something to you. And those are the things that are the hardest to release. And I think it's important to remember that in the process of release, we're not talking about forgetting something. We're not talking about losing why it was important to us. What we're talking about is separating what it has called forth from us, what it is growing in us, how we are shifting and changing from the vehicle it came in. Like a farmer will separate the grain from the chaff. So with wheat or with corn, the grain itself is encased in a hull. And in order to get the benefit of the nutrients in the grain, you've got to get rid of the hull. And there's a process. Well, now there's equipment that does that. But in us, that process has to be a conscious letting go. It has to be understanding that whatever the incident was that has shaken something loose in us, what we are called to know is that what happened can be let go of so that we might simply know the truth of who we are now. Because when things happen in our lives, it changes us. We are changed by, sometimes we are changed by our own choices, And sometimes we are changed by the things that seem to come at us and affect us directly. But either way, it's a process of growth. No different than in nature. If lightning strikes the tree and a branch is severed from the trunk, or if the tree simply drops its leaves as it does every year, the tree is still in this process of evolution, which may look tragic, but is not death. So I think what sums it up for me and what I woke up to was this quote by T.D. Jakes. He is a minister of I want to say Baptist church, but don't quote me on that. But here's what he says. He's got it going on. He says to stop watering things that were never meant to grow in your life. How many of you water with your attention things that really aren't yours to do? I mean, I know we don't have any gossips or busybodies in the congregation because you're all science-minders. Or you want to be helpful, but it's really not helpful. So stop watering things that were never meant to grow in your life. Water what works. Water what's good, what's right. You might say, what's timely, what is now, what is who I am today. Stop playing around with those dead bones and stuff you can't fix. It's over. Leave it alone. You're coming into a season of greatness. If you water what's alive and divine, you will see harvest like you've never seen before. Ernest Holmes says, when we stand for what we are for, rather than what we might be against, we are in our divine power and we cannot be denied. Stop wasting water on dead issues, dead relationships, dead people, a dead past. No matter how much you water concrete, you can't grow a garden. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about being disrespectful over the loss of a loved one. But all of the struggle around that does not bring someone back. What does heal is to be with the feeling as it moves through you and to know that you carry the impact with you forward. So someone you love, that love doesn't die. That love is eternal. A job that you were involved with for 25 years doesn't mean that you weren't involved or that it wasn't worthwhile. It simply means that what you have grown from that, you will take with you wherever you go. We're not required to keep the casing that the growth came in order to get the nutrition from it. What we are required to do is to drop our leaves. What we are required to do is to let the cycles of life move through us so that we are part of the flow. And it is not our ego mind that is building obstacles to that flow. Because the human part of us gets really comfortable. We work really hard to make our little nest, don't we? We have our little work nest, and we have our little home nest, and we have our little relationship nest, and we go from place to place to place in our little transportation nest. And when something disrupts any one of those places, we get all agitated, and we get defensive, and we get argumentative, and we put our elbows out. Elbows out is no way to go through life. After a while, your shoulders get really tired, don't they? What we're meant to do is move, to grow, to evolve, to follow the cycles of life, to be active when it's time to be active, and then to go within and renew and refresh when it is time to pause. And it's our mind that overthinks. That's why Ernest Holmes tells us that a trained mind is so much better than an untrained mind. Because left to its own devices, the ego would keep everything exactly the same and everybody would do exactly what we wanted. How's that working for you? Right, it doesn't. So instead, we set up our little nests. We love where we are. And we trust the process. We trust the cycle. We fall asleep. We let ourselves get refreshed every day. We come back and do more. And then we rest again. And then we come back and do more. And we do the same thing in our year. We pause and we count our blessings. How many pumpkins can one person have, right? We count that bushel basket of wonders that have happened to us all year long. Every relationship, every activity, every trip we took this summer, every new song we heard on the radio, all works together for our good. And we bless that and let the rest go. So what we're going to do today is a little bit of an experiential. That means you have to do something. So I'm going to invite Mickey to bring our baskets with a little bit of help. And I'm going to invite all of you. Mick, why don't you start in the back, and Mary, you come up front. I'm going to invite all of you to take a leaf out of the basket. Take a leaf. There you go. Now you'll notice what you're taking is a dead leaf. You know, no matter how much attention you give it, no matter how much you try to water it, you're not going to get a new tree out of this leaf, right? This is that place where its work is done and it no longer needs to be carried. What do we do with leaves? You know, if you live out in the country, you might burn that last pile before the snow comes. Or maybe you crumble it up and add it to the compost pile. Or maybe you just spread it around like mulch on your garden plants. Or the ground where the rose bushes are to keep it warmer during the winter. I won't say warm, but warmer during the winter. So that they may become part of that nutrient cycle which will bring us new growth in the spring. And I'm going to invite you to just take a moment and close your eyes. And I want you to, in your own mind, bring to mind anything that you might be carrying that feels heavy, that is sticking or clinging to you. Something you know you need to let go of, something whose time has come. And if you are carrying something heavy like grief or regret or resentment, you don't even have to let it all go. Just allow it to ease a bit. Let that sadness disguised as regret simply flow through you as sadness. Let that fear be replaced by truth, and just for a moment be willing to believe the truth alone. Remember, we're not letting go of the importance. We're letting go of the struggle to keep it alive when it is no longer alive. Let that sadness or judgment of yourself or other people transform into new choices, a new awareness, a different direction. Not to lose who you've been, but to nourish who you are now. And take whatever is on your mind and your heart and let it flow into that leaf in your hands. Let that leaf hold whatever it is time to let go of. It's going to nourish the soil in which you grow. And when you are ready, I invite you to come up front and to crumble that leaf into this fresh soil that is up front here. So I invite you to walk forward and simply deposit your leaf into the dirt, letting go of what it's time to let go of. And so what we release with love, what we release into the heart, is then transformed into something new, something fertile, something ready for growth, for evolution, for transformation, to become a new form. So we allow what is being released to decompose so that we can recompose it in and as ourselves, our energy to move forward with a sense of lightness of being, that all things in their time come and go and come again, and that there is nothing in us that need block that. There need not be any fear in letting go of something which is done. Because when there is room, the new will show up. When there is room in us, in our hearts, when the old relationship is finished, when the old house is sold, when the old way of speaking is given up, then there is room for new love, new space, a new energy of speaking our word, of truly claiming our good, that which we are meant to be and to have and to express. In the song, The Rose, it says love is a flower and you are its seed. And that when things get lonely or the road is too long, you are to remember that beneath the snow is always the seed that will become the rose. So what you are releasing is just like nature in its wisdom. It not only allows for the last harvest, but it releases the seeds that will bloom in the spring. And we too are a part of that cycle. Our hearts also are there to grow, to sprout, to energize, to feed us. For this is our power, this is our truth, this is who we truly are. And so I say to you, at the beginning of this holiday season, happy, happy harvest. Namaste. All right, that was sort of a prayer, but we're going to do another one anyway. So.